What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch back here with another NFL 2020 division preview. In this preview, I'm going to break down the AFC West, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Denver Broncos, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the LA Chargers. Give you my record predictions for every team, break down every roster in this division, and give you my overall thoughts on each team, roster, coaching staff, and how I believe they will do in 2020. Before I get started, before I break down the AFC West, make sure that you do Gronk spike the like button and subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL videos just like this. And comment your opinion. Let me know if you're live or if you're watching while it's up on YouTube after the fact. Make sure you do comment your prediction for each and every team in the AFC West. I want to hear from you. This is just my opinion. I want to hear your opinion on this division in the comment section below. And after I break down each and every team in this division, make sure you do leave that prediction if you're here watching this live. So let's break down the AFC West. We're going to start off with the team that I believe everybody has winning this division. So let's just start off with the simple and the easy. And let's start with the Kansas City Chiefs, shall we? So the Kansas City Chiefs, I really feel like they are going to be, once again, really, really, really good. I mean, there's nothing that you can say about the Kansas City Chiefs. They are the favorite, once again, to win the Super Bowl. They are, once again, going to be one of the best teams in the NFL. They're once again going to have an awesome offense. They're once again just going to be very difficult to defend. And the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, first in this division, best offense in the NFL. I think their defense, when it's together, when it's playing at its peak, is, a borderline top half team. The first time I did my rankings according to the criteria, I had the defense ranked higher than I do now. But considering some of the suspensions, Bashaud Breeland being out for the first, I believe, 4 weeks, and just some of the overall depth concerns of the secondary, I have moved them slightly down. But their offense remains number one. It's the best in the league. There's no doubt about it. And yeah, I think they have a good shot to repeat, which is very difficult to say. Other than the Patriots over the past 20 years, I don't think any team has had as good of an opportunity as these Chiefs do to actually repeat as champions. And that says a lot. So the Chiefs are kind of like the new favorites of the NFL, the new big team, the new primetime squad taking the place of those Patriot squads. So the Chiefs, it starts with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, the best combination in the NFL by a pretty big margin, in my opinion, over a Pete Carroll and a Russell Wilson, over a Sean Payton and a Drew Brees. So they are what runs the ship. But I think the impressive part about the Chiefs is they showed their mental fortitude. They showed their mental strength last year in the playoffs, how they were able to come back. Patrick Mahomes making magic happen, comeback after comeback after comeback. And sure, some people may say it was a little fluky, but again, just like New England, New England was able to do that in the past with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and it's very similar to what the Chiefs have been able to do. But the Chiefs have done it in a different way, right? They're more explosive. They're not as detailed or strategic, but they're more explosive with big plays. And that's how they were able to win that Super Bowl, because they were simply unstoppable when it mattered most, and they made the big play more than their opponent. The other thing about the Chiefs that's impressive is last year they showed that they could win even when Mahomes was hurt. And I think that's a big reason why, going into last year, I was still a little skeptical if this team was going to be a long-term contender, because I needed to see how this team would handle the pressure and how this team would handle having expectations. But obviously they handled that last year, and they came through bigger than we even expected, right? As Super Bowl champions. Even when they were somewhat counted out. I mean, during that stretch of Mahomes being hurt, we thought they may drop some games. lose home field. They only end up as the second seed, kind of fluke. Right? Like, they weren't supposed to be the second seed. If the Patriots don't lose to Miami, New England gets the bye and Kansas City becomes the third seed. People forget about that. But they fortunately were able to get the bye, and then, it's history right there. So they get that, and they end up making a run. But I think the impressive part about last year was the fact that they were just so mentally strong. And I think that's why I'm confident about this team being the best team in the AFC West once again in 2020, and being the best team in the AFC once again. Because I think if, Mahomes even goes down, they've proven that they can win games without him. And Andy Reid is such a great coach that he can scheme around whoever the quarterback is and make it work offensively. They have such great talent around him. Let's take a look at that offense, shall we? So the Kansas City Chiefs offense is really, really good. I think it's the best in the league. Sammy Watkins, 56th at wide receiver. Mecole Hardman, 33rd, has the potential to be that high this year. I mean, he's got that type of potential. That might be a bit high, but I mean, he's got that type of potential. I'd certainly say that. I think he's going to be better than Watkins this year. Tyreek Hill, and the reason I'll say that I have Hardman pretty high here is just because of his game-breaking ability. I mean, there were so many times last year, even when Tyreek Hill was hurt, that he stepped up as, in my opinion, their best receiver. I would not be surprised if Mecole Hardman actually came through with, a borderline 1,000-yard season, because we know Sammy Watkins at some point this year is going to get hurt. I mean, let's just be honest. He's going to get hurt. He's going to be good when he plays, for the most part. He'll be solid, but he is streaky. With Hardman, they have a 1-2 combo between him and Tyreek Hill of just danger, bro. Danger. Kelechi Osemele. Again, man, I effed up on the offensive line. I forgot to fix that, guys. That's my bad. I've been doing these previews so quickly that I sometimes miss some stuff, and I've been very busy. But, yeah, I messed that up. Mitchell Schwartz is the number 2 right tackle. Osemele is not the number. I'm actually going to check for you guys. So I'm going to take this down. But Mahomes is number 1 quarterback. Tyreek Hill is the number 3 receiver, according to me. Number 2 tight end is Travis Kelce. And I do believe Clyde Edwards-Helaire is number 17 running back. But let me check. I believe I messed up on the Osemele and maybe the interior line. So let me check. Let me take that down. So at center, I have Reader at 24. And at tackle, I have Fisher at 30, left tackle. So that was wrong. Wiley I have at 28, and at guard I have Osemele at number, where is he? 55. That makes more sense. Okay. So yeah, they just signed Osemele off the street because yes, Tyreek's the 3rd best receiver. You could argue he's number 1. But Kelechi Osemele, they just signed off the street because the doctor is gone. The doctor is not going to be there this year. The good Canadian kid, he's trying to save the world from what's going on in the world right now. And you got to give him credit for doing that as a person. But that's definitely going to hurt their offensive line. But overall, I mean, their offensive line is solid. It's not quite as good as it showed on the graphic. That was incorrect. I'm actually not sure who I had as the 4th best right guard. But either way, 55th is Kelechi Osemele. So he's a guy that's interesting. I think he's actually pretty intriguing because, based on last year, their interior line the last 2 years has been the weakness of the line. And that's how teams have been able to get after Mahomes when they've been able to get after Mahomes. But because of that pressure, because of the stunts that teams can throw at them defensively, scheme-wise. I mean, Belichick's done a good job of that as well, of throwing Mahomes off his game just a little bit. I thought the 49ers early in that Super Bowl were able to do that pretty well. That interior line is a little, interesting. It's a little interesting. And actually, I think that Mecole Hardman ranking might have been wrong. Let me check that. Now knowing that the rest of the graphic was wrong. Check this real quick. Sorry, guys. I've just been going like crazy with these graphics. So, Mecole Hardman, I still have pretty high. I have Watkins at 44. and Hardman at 51. So that makes more sense. So Hardman is right in front of Darius Slayton of the Giants and right behind Robbie Anderson because just Robbie Anderson's more proven. But I do believe Hardman's going to have a better season. I'm going to stick behind that. Sammy Watkins, 44th, right behind Deontay Johnson of the Steelers and right ahead of Jamison Crowder. So that makes more sense. But yeah, Osemele is their biggest question offensively because they just signed him off the street. He retired like halfway through the season last year, and he's coming in. I know I trust Andy Reid when it comes to offensive line. I think he can fix it. But when it comes to that offensive line, if there is one weakness to take advantage of, and if there is a way to get pressure after Mahomes, it is that center guard spot where I think they're okay, but they definitely could be better. And if you're going to slow down this offense at all, it's going to be by getting pressure in some fashion or form, whether that's through blitzing, stunts up front, or just pure athletes getting after Patrick Mahomes. I think the best way to play the Chiefs is to just blitz them and pray to get Mahomes to get rid of the ball quickly. The problem with blitzing them is you need to have really good cornerbacks in the back end, because if you don't, you need to be able to cover in case that blitz doesn't get there, because Tyreek Hill's going to burn you, right? And more often than not, teams are double team Tyreek Hill. And that's why I believe that after a season in the NFL, they're going to have Hardman more on the field, because the combination between Hardman's speed and Hill's speed is just very difficult for any secondary to handle. So that's why I just think this offense is so good that even if the defense regresses, I think that they can handle it because they can score so quickly. They don't always have to be on, but when they are on, they're going to score a lot of points in bunches. And that's what we saw in the playoffs last year. Like, to be quite honest with you, talent-wise, across the board, from offense to defense, across the board, the Chiefs were not the best team in the NFL last year. The 49ers were, okay? Clearly. But the Chiefs are so explosive offensively that they're kind of like the Golden State Warriors of the NFL, like when the Warriors were winning championships. They can just put together points in bunches, and they can just burn you. And even versus New England in 2018, I mean, I call this like kind of jokingly the 2018 AFC Championship, where everyone says Kansas City lost because they went offsides. D Ford went offsides. If you check the statistics in that game where New England outgained them by double the yards and double the first downs, New England realistically versus any other opponent should have won that game by 20 points. But instead, Kansas City, they're able to, and I did that video maximizing Mahomes with Andy Reid. That's exactly my point. Like, Kansas City doesn't always have to be the best team on the field to win because of their talent on offense, specifically because of their speed and big play explosive ability. They can get totally outplayed in a game, but still be able to win a game because of that, because of Mahomes and because of their receivers. They were honestly outplayed in every playoff game, at least for portions of the game, but because of the way that they play and the way that they're built, they're able to win games. So that's the fascinating part about the Chiefs. Now let's hope that the defensive graphic is well made, and I believe it is. So let's check out the Chiefs' defense. Not offense, defense. Okay, so there we go. Chris Jones at number 2. Chris Jones, to me, is the second best defensive lineman in the NFL. I wasn't sure I wanted to say defensive player because he's not better than Gilmore, but I think he's only behind Aaron Donald on defensive linemen in the NFL. He takes over games, and I think, personally, he should have been the MVP of the Super Bowl, okay? He should have been the MVP. Tyrann Mathieu, second best strong safety, in my opinion, only behind Jamal Adams. Tyrann Mathieu offers them a lot. Now, this is the thing. This is the thing about Tyrann Mathieu. Okay, he can play in the nickel. So, technically, this graphic could be wrong. Like, they like to sneak Daniel Sorensen on the field at strong safety as well. They could also, move guys around. They had Kendall Fuller. I think they'll miss Kendall Fuller quite a bit from last year, because Kendall Fuller was kind of like a versatile piece in their secondary. They played him outside, they played him at nickel, they played him at safety. They have Thornhill back, so that's big. But the flexibility of having Fuller and Thornhill on the field would have been awesome for them, but unfortunately he left. So Tyrann Mathieu might see more snaps at safety instead of nickel this year because just I don't know if Sorensen is obviously the best guy to have on the field. Maybe somebody else there steps up. I think they did sign like Adrian Colbert or something like that. Somebody at safety as well for depth. That wasn't a bad signing. I think Willie Gay, their rookie, I believe second-round pick, will probably play some snaps later in the season more than early in the season. They're obviously weak at linebacker, as you can see with Wilson and Hitchens. Oh, man, I messed up the Ward one as well. Dude, I keep messing up these graphics. I'm sorry, guys. Let me check Ward's ranking. See, I was doing this like within the last hour of getting this video ready between the AFC South and AFC West. I'm sorry about that. Let me see. Where did I have him? So I had Chardavius Ward at he's in the top 20. I have him 20th. So he's not number 6. He's number 20. But I did have him in the top 20. So yeah, not number 6, number 20. But that's the only one that's incorrect. Bashaud Breeland, I did have at 39. Now he's going to be suspended though. So... And honestly, I mean, Ward, I know 6 isn't where I have him ranked, but he did play really, really well in the playoffs. Thornhill, I do have at 15. I actually thought he played amazing when he played last year, and he's going to have a great year this year, I think, in year 2. Alex Okafor is probably their biggest weakness on defense as a starter. Yeah, I'm definitely cramming Diego. Sorry about that, guys. I apologize. But Mike Pennell played really well for them after getting cut by New England. You know, he played really, really well for them. So they have some players. I think the thing about the Chiefs defense that's really hard to account for is the fact that they have studs, but they also have a lot of players that I wouldn't say are starting caliber. I don't think Alex Okafor is a starter on a lot of teams. I don't think Mike Pennell is a starter on a lot of teams. I don't think their linebackers are starters on a lot of teams. But when you look at Tyrann Mathieu, Frank Clark, Chris Jones, even Chardavius Ward last year, maybe this year, Thornhill could develop into a stud. I think they have studs to mask up their deficiencies. Now, the problem is going to be, I believe his name is Hamilton. He's going to step in for Breeland. You Chiefs fans can let me know what you think of him. I don't know too much about him. I'm just going to be honest. I don't know. He's going to step up, probably be their starter in place of Bashaud Breeland. That's going to be a big-time weakness the first 4 weeks, especially they play week 1, Deshaun Watson and that receiving core. That's going to be tough. That's probably going to be a shootout. So their offense is going to have to carry them in the first 4 weeks without Breeland, who just like Ward stepped up and played above his level of play previously. So, yeah, the defense is probably the most intriguing part of their team. If they're able to repeat, the defense is going to have to play the way that they played last year. Because their defense, I thought, when I looked at the Chiefs last year, I didn't think they would win the Super Bowl. And the reason I said I didn't think they would win the Super Bowl is because I really didn't think that they helped their defense in terms of statistics in terms of talent very much. And my lights are flickering for some reason. Everything's going wrong here. I just feel like this year, are they going to be able to get the same players that played above their skill level last year to play at that same level? That's the question for the Chiefs. I think that's the biggest question. We know the offense is going to perform. We know Mahomes is going to perform. We know Reed is going to put together a good game plan. And also Spagnuolo is going to put together a good game plan. But can those guys, the Wards, the Breelands, the Thornhills, even a Damian Wilson who didn't play terrible, or a Mike Pennell, who's also suspended, says Zane. He's correct. Are those guys going to play at the same level, which was better than I thought they could last year, this year? That will determine whether the Chiefs win the Super Bowl or not. But it won't really determine anything until the playoffs. It's not like they're going to miss the playoffs even if they have a bad defense. They're going to make it just on their offense and coaching alone. But when you play those best upper echelon teams, can their defense play as well as it did last year? That's ultimately the question. And if Frank Clark, Chris Jones, and Tyrann Mathieu take over the way they did last year, then they definitely can repeat. So That's the Chiefs. The best team in this division still, no doubt, no question. Easiest pick across the board in the NFL to win their division is the Chiefs. And they are my number 1 seed in the AFC. Now let's give you their record. I have the Chiefs going 12-4. Their ceiling to me is 14-2. I don't think they can go 16-0 just because I don't truly believe that their defense is good enough to do so. Their floor is 10-6. I do believe they'll be the first seed in the AFC. They will get the bye. I think they will be better than the Ravens in the regular season. Not sure they'll beat the Ravens when they play, but I think they'll be better than them by a game. And I think their floor is 10-6. That would probably be that their defense plays more closely to 2018. And what else? Their offense, maybe they have some injuries to key players like Kelsey Hill, maybe Mahomes. But that would be their floor, 10-6. I think their floor is still playoffs, similarly to Patriots teams of the past. All right, let's pray that I have the graphics correct on other teams. Like, seriously, bro. Let's see. All right, so let's go with the Chargers next. But before we get to the Chargers, give me your predictions for the Chiefs. Singh has the Chiefs going 12-4. Apparently, Rivers had an amazing camp. Phillip Rivers, I'm assuming you're talking about. That's cool. Jupiter says, I really think the Chiefs can go 16-0. I don't ever think any team can go 16-0. Ramsey is a press monster, right? Ramsey is very good in press, yes. Let's Talk Politics says floor is 10-6. Their ceiling is 13-3. Diego says, I know Hill is elite. Trust me, I'm a Raiders fan. I'm hoping we can have at least half of him in Ruggs. Ultra says Chiefs sweep the Raiders, split with the Chargers and the Broncos. They also lose to New England, New Orleans, and Atlanta, finishing 11-5. I feel like that's low. First in the division, first in the AFC. They do have a harder schedule this year. I'll give Ultra that. 14-2 is their floor at 10-6. 10-6 is their floor. 14-2 is their ceiling. Kevin Urquhart says Deontay Johnson led the NFL in average separation yards, but okay, buddy. There's some arguments going on in the chat. GSP says I think the Chiefs go 13-3 and win the conference on a head-to-head win versus Baltimore. Mahomes is just too good to be any worse. Sane says 13-3. Bilal says 12-4. What else? Kevin Urquhart laughs at Ultra for saying the Chargers will beat Kansas City. Dakota says, I'm banking on the Chiefs being way over their heads since they won the Super Bowl last season. And if it happens, then the Broncos can sneakily win the division. I doubt that. Bro, lights, stay, stop it. Chiefs will go 12-4 again. Rivers is going to have 5 kids in the league at the same time. Did you guys see Frank Gore Jr. playing yesterday? Nicholas has the Chiefs going 13-3. Chiefs 11-5, says Michael. What's up, Mike? Can the Chargers defense slow down the Chiefs offense? I would say with Derwin James, they had a really good opportunity to do so. Without him, their defense might do a good job, which I think they will in at least one of the games, but I don't know if their offense is good enough to beat the Chiefs. But the games will be close. Chiefs first in the AFC, says let's talk politics. What else? Okay, let's get to the next team. Yes, Kevol is hacking my lights. All right. The LA Chargers. The LA Chargers, I have finishing 4th in the AFC West. Sorry, Charger fans. I'll do it for you, though. I'll do it for you, okay? Da-da-da-da, Chiefs. Nah, just kidding. Da-da-da-da, Chargers. There we go. Chargers fans, I hope you guys are better than I think you will be. But let's break down why I think you'll finish last in this division. All right, offensively, 28th. That is the biggest reason why I think the Chargers are going to be the worst team in this division. Defensively, I have you in the top 10. I think you could be top 5. Obviously, I docked you guys for not having Derwin James this year. That's unfortunate because I think Derwin James is the best safety when he's healthy, right beside Jamal Adams. And I think he is... I think he's a difference maker. If the Chargers went to the playoffs this year, I was thinking Derwin James as a defensive player of the year candidate. Honestly, like that's the way I was feeling about him. Bro, what the heck? Kev Wool is wrecking my lights, man. But let's get to the offense and let's pray the graphics are okay. So they are. Let's go, baby. All right. So Tyrod Taylor, 32nd. Yes, that's a big reason I have the Chargers 4th in the division. Austin Eckler, 11th. I think Eckler is actually slept on as a true running back. I think a lot of people sleep on him because he is really, really, really small, but he's such a good receiver. He's such a good receiver out of the backfield and just difference maker in terms of mismatch nightmare out of the backfield. Hunter Henry is the same at tight end. He's really, really good, man, and I just want to see him be healthy. He'd probably be higher if he was healthy more consistently. Brian Bulaga is a really awesome ad. Tevy is their biggest issue. Feeney is also below average. I do think Tevy is a worse overall player, especially in pass coverage, but Feeney is the guard position, is pretty strong. Mike Pouncey is 18th. He's good, but I think he is overrated, and he has been hurt again. Trey Turner, 17th. He's good. He's probably, borderline top half. Like, I think he's overrated because he has gone to the Pro Bowl like every year for some reason, even though he hasn't been as great the last 2 years. So Charger fans, if you're expecting like one of the best guards in the game, I would not expect that, but I'd expect an upgrade over what you've had in the past. Hunter Henry, Mike Williams at number 39. I think he has an opportunity this year to jump into the top 32 receivers, into the top number 1, but he just needs to get the opportunities for jump balls, and he needs to be healthy, which he is not right now. Keenan Allen is a borderline top 10 player. I think he lacks the explosive ability to be top 10. That's just my opinion, but he is one of the best route runners in the game. And I know nothing about Jennings, so I ranked him as the lowest starting receiver. Maybe they try to do more 12 personnel. Maybe they utilize more running backs. I'm not quite sure what they're going to do offensively. I'm very intrigued to see what Anthony Lynn does with his boy Tyrod Taylor. And I'm very intrigued to see just overall how they run their offense. Like, do they do more like option stuff with Tyrod Taylor, or are they more conventional? Do they run similar things that they did in Buffalo? That would be my guess overall. So that is the offense, and that's how I have them ranked. I think they'll be very streaky this year. I think there's going to be matchups where they do decent, but I think there's going to be a lot of games this year where they struggle no matter who's at quarterback, whether it be Herbert or whether it be Tyrod Taylor. That's just the way I feel. I think they're going to be up and down, and I'm not a fan of Tyrod, as you can see. I think he's done. I used to be a fan of Tyrod. When he was in Buffalo, I thought he was good. I thought he was a good player. I thought he was a good quarterback. But I've seen him in 2 different places now, right? I saw him in Cleveland, and that really hurt his stock for me. Like, I did not think he was impressive in Cleveland at all as a starting quarterback. Baker was a much better player for them, and he totally got outplayed and outshined. And the problem I have with Tyrod is he's very conservative. He does not try to make any big plays, and that hurts you more than it helps you a lot of the times. Now, he's not going to lose you any games because he won't turn the football over, but he's not going to win you any games. So don't expect that because he's not going to make big plays with his arm. If he still has the athletic ability with his legs, which I think he still does, and they use him wisely, then maybe he could be better than I expect. But that's just the way I see it. I think he's the worst passing quarterback in the game right now. And I actually, hopefully Mike Williams can stay on the field because without him, they are not nearly as explosive as they need to be as a passing offense. So they have a lot of questions on the offensive side of the ball. But the one thing I will say is I think Eckler will have a big season, and I think their offensive line will be improved overall. But they still need to get a better left tackle in the future for Justin Herbert to protect him. And that's another question. How much will we see Justin Herbert? I hope we get to see him a little bit towards the end of the season. I think if they're not in contention for the playoffs early on, if they're not doing well and surprising me, then I think they will throw Herbert in there sooner rather than later, but that's just my opinion. And I do think actually it would help them to throw Herbert in there because I think Herbert's a better passer than Tyrod. And I actually think that with the defense, the way it's constructed and how good it is, I think that he's going to be fine being the starter. Like, I don't think he needs to make a ton of plays for them to be in games. Like, he can make more plays with his arms than Tyrod can. I actually think Herbert would be better than Tyrod. I think I'd have more confidence in Herbert. Maybe he sits the whole season. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. That's just the way I feel. I don't hate Tyrod personally. Nothing against the guy. He's a great guy. I just don't think he's, right now in his career, a starting quarterback. Okay? Defensively, let's take a look. So defensively, this is a loaded defense, both in terms of their starters and their depth. Now, obviously, not having, one of the top two safeties in the NFL will hurt them. But I think Nasir Adderley is a guy they draft in the second round. I think they like him. I think he's going to get the start. Him and Rashawn Jenkins, who's I still need to prove a little bit to me, but he could take strides as well this year. Drew Tranquil's might be the most underrated linebacker in the NFL outside of my guy in Buffalo, Matt Milano. Kenneth Murray is a rookie. I expect him to play a lot, especially after the first few weeks once he gets his legs under him in the NFL to gain that experience. And I think he's fast. He fits this scheme very well. He's a good tackler. He's good in space. Same as Tranquil. Tranquil just has that rare, like instincts at the linebacker position that makes a really good linebacker. Melvin Ingram, I moved him up recently from my edge rankings. I just think he's a really good all-around player. They move him everywhere, left, right, edge, inside. He's good as a pass rusher. He's good as a run defender. He's a problem. He takes over games. And so does Joey Bosa. I think you could argue Joey Bosa should be higher. He's really good. I think he is right now better than his brother. And he's just powerful. He was rightfully paid the money he was paid. Their weaknesses are inside. I think Linval Joseph is not that good anymore. I think he took a big step back last year, but I think he'll be a stable force for them in terms of a run defender. I have him ranked lower than probably most people just because he's very one-dimensional. He's just not a very good pass rusher. He's a solid run defender, but not much else in my opinion. Chris Harris is the second best nickel player, in my opinion, in the league. And then you have Casey Hayward, who's really good. You could argue he's top 10. I have him just outside top 10. I kind of have him and Darius Slay kind of tied for number 10, but he's at number 11 for me. And Desmond King, number 30. He had a bad year last year. Like, he gave up over 100 passer rating and all that, but he was an all-pro in 2018. So if he can get back to that, he'll probably be playing more outside than in the nickel with Chris Harris there. I don't think Chris Harris is the player he used to be, but he's still really darn good. And he could play man or he could play zone. And he's really smart. He's a good tackler too. So, yeah, that's the defense. The starters, they do have really good depth at linebacker, I think. They have really good depth at defensive line. Even on the edge, like a guy like Nwosu who can play like linebacker or edge is an awesome player, I think. They have a couple linebackers who also can play starting snaps, who played starting snaps last year. Their safety position without James is probably the weakness. Their corner position, even behind those top three, are pretty good. Like, it's one of the top three in the league behind New England and Baltimore. I think it's the third best corner group. So the Chargers defense is going to be fun to watch. They're going to be fast. They're going to be ferocious. They're going to be all over the football. But I don't think their defense is enough to overcome their deficiencies offensively in the passing game. So maybe they surprise me if they come out with a really electric scheme offensively, but I don't think, they're really that smart of a coaching staff. Like, I think Anthony Lynn is a fine coach, but I don't look at him the same way I look at some of the top guys in the league. And defensively, they're a basic scheme. I think they rely more on talent than they do scheme. So my prediction for them is 5-11. I had it at 6-10, and I've kind of been switching back and forth. But looking at their schedule, I mean, they play in the toughest division, maybe in the AFC. This AFC West has a really difficult schedule, like extremely difficult schedule. Like even the Chiefs have a tough schedule for the Chiefs standards. Ceiling is 9-7. I think that ceiling is pretty high, like considering they could make the playoffs, I think. If Tyrod proves me wrong and their defense is as good as I think it could be, and that offensive line is better and Eckler goes off, I mean, they could make the playoffs. So they're like one of those teams for me that is all over the place. Their range of outcomes is very unpredictable. They could be really bad or they could be really good. The other thing with the Chargers is they always get hurt. Okay, so this is the thing I need to bring up. They always get injured. Their ability to take care of their players, their training staff is one of the worst in the NFL. They always have players getting injured even before the season starts, just like Derwin James. So they will have injuries more than most teams just because that's the way their team is. They're I don't know what it is. Maybe it's their regimen, their workouts. I don't know what it is, but it's just the case. So I had to take that into account as well. And no matter their quarterback, I think it's going to be one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. So I'm just not confident in a division where I like the other three teams a lot. I have the Chargers at the bottom. But I am a Chargers, like I like the Chargers. I usually root for the Chargers. I want to see them do well in their new stadium. It will be fun. So I think this team can be good, though, like really good in the future. Like next year, I wouldn't be surprised if I put them in the playoffs because they have that much talent on both sides of the football. And if Justin Herbert is as good as I think he can be, then this team can be a competitor next year. I just don't think it's this year. So the Chargers, I have fourth in the division. Give me your predictions, guys. I know we had a couple of 6-10s. I think somebody said 10-6. So that's interesting. What else we got here? Other than arguments in the chat. Michael says, Chargers went 11-5 2 years ago. Many should go back to first grade. I don't know what you're saying. 9-7 for Jacob. Floor is 5-11. Ceiling is 12-4. Opium says 6-10. Ultra says 5-11. They split the division. They beat the Jets and the Panthers. Fourth in the division, 14th in the AFC. Ceiling is 9-7. Floor is 3-13. I don't think they can go 3-13. GSP says, I agree for once. I have LA going 5-11 unless one of their quarterbacks really steps up. If not, they're going to get stomped by the rest of their division. Diego says 7-9 for the Chargers. Price says 5-11. Evan says 4-12. Dakota says the Chargers have no fans, so the Chiefs, Raiders, and Broncos will take turns sweeping them, especially since the stadium will be filled with opposing fans. Well, I don't think there's going to be a lot of fans in stadiums this year. Have I been watching Hard Knocks? Not a lot. I need to catch up on it. I only watched like the first or second episode, so or 2 episodes. I've seen 2 episodes. That's it. Jacob said 9-7, 12-4 ceiling, 5-11 floor. Joseph said 4-12, beating the Jets. This is the first team he has under 12 wins, I think. I'm just kidding, Joseph. I think 4-12, beating the Jets, Miami, Jacksonville, Atlanta with a tough schedule. Derwin James is the best safety when healthy. Good tackler, ball hawker, great in coverage, and can get to the quarterback. Unfortunately, he's not playing, so that sucks. Chargers 5-11 for Sports with AJ. What else? Let's Talk Politics says they went 12-4 2 years ago. Yes, they did. And they lost to the Patriots. My Patriots. 6-10 says I'm just the weed man. Dave says 7-9. Remember when the Chargers had the number 1 defense and offense? They did? When? 2006? All right. Let's get to the Raiders, baby. Let's get to the Raiders. I know there's some Raiders fans on this channel. So the Las Vegas Raiders, I have finishing 3rd in the AFC West. This is a team that, just like the Chargers, has a wide range of outcomes. I could see the Raiders finishing 2nd in the division, definitely. I could see them making the playoffs. I could also see them completely unraveling at the quarterback position and coach. I could see that being some friction, too much to handle. I could see their defense taking huge strides forward. I could also see their defense being one of the worst in football. I could see their offense having breakout players. I could also see their offense having players that don't show up because they have a lot of young players that are unproven. Their team ranks 13 offensively. They're better offensively last year than you thought, and they only added to that. I think they were like top 5 in first downs last year. Defensively, 25th. Their defense has a lot of questions, but it also has a lot of potential. The Raiders are a team that I think are going to be really good next year, but they need another year to improve. They're a team that, just like the Chargers, this whole division is going to give the Chiefs a run for their money very soon. Like the Broncos, the Chargers, or Raiders all have young, promising talent. The Raiders, though, the biggest question for them is Derek Carr still the guy? That's the question that I think needs to be answered in Las Vegas this year. New stadium, too. Awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing the Raiders in Vegas. I've always wanted a team in Vegas in the NFL, and we're finally going to get that. So that's awesome. I also think for you guys, there's going to be a large range of records. So let's see. Raiders offense. So their offense, again, I nailed it. Yes, no screw-ups here. All right. Henry Ruggs, I'm high on. He was the number 1 wide receiver drafted this year in the NFL draft. Many people say that he shouldn't have been, but he was for a reason. What was the reason? Speed and ability after the catch. Many people mistake Henry Ruggs for just being a downfield receiver. That is not the case. Henry Ruggs is a receiver who can catch the football anywhere on the field and take it to the house. I think he has an opportunity to be one of those breakout young receivers in the league this year. Hunter Renfrow, some will say I'm a little low on him, but I just think he's a role player. I think the best he can ever be is a Danny Amendola. I think the worst he can be is he's out of the league after this year. But what I'm saying about Hunter Renfrow is I think he's a really smart player. I think he's going to be where you want him to be. But the thing with him is he lacks the twitchiness that a guy like Amendola or Edelman or Beasley have had in their careers to make them a legitimate, really good slot option. But he is like a really reliable hands guy, and he'll be in the right spot. But I do think at times he will struggle to separate from man-to-man. Bryan Edwards, I think, can be really good. I think he has a lot of potential. This is a guy that in college was like 18, mossing people in the SEC. So he definitely has a bright future. Darren Waller is one of the best tight ends in the game. There's no question about it. Oh, damn! I screwed up Rodney Hudson. My bad, guys. Jeez. I'm honestly super pissed at myself because I take this really seriously and I messed it up. So Rodney Hudson is number 2. I probably just forgot to switch that one, but everyone else is right. Colton Miller at 39, Incognito at 5, that's correct. Trent Brown at 15, that's correct. Gabe Jackson at 21. Again, guys, Rodney Hudson is my number 2 center. You would know that because I had him on my top 100. So obviously the 13th best center in the league was not on my top 100. Derek Carr, number 20. Jacobs at number 9. I moved him up 1 spot since my running back rankings over, I think, Aaron Jones. I think Aaron Jones. 15, Trent Brown. At tackle, I think he could be higher or he could be lower. He's very inconsistent. Gabe Jackson is fine. I think he's like their second worst player, surrounded by a lot of good players. And Colton Miller still has a little bit more to prove. Derek Carr, about 20 is where he ranks. I think you could rank him as high as like 17. You could rank him as low as like 22 or 23. But I do like Derek Carr. I think he's solid, but he does definitely have something to prove this year. He needs to be more aggressive in his decision making. He needs to stop being so conservative. And I do think he needs to use his athletic ability more. He's more athletic than people give him credit for. He gives himself credit for. He needs to move a little bit more. So, sorry, again, screwed up another graphic with Rodney Hudson. But Rodney Hudson's a great player, number 2. And I think offensively, reason I have him at number 13, their offensive line is fantastic. I mean, that offensive line is overpowering. They dominate people. And I think their run game is going to be one of the 5 best in the league, which is going to keep them in a lot of games. And it will be able to keep their defense on the sidelines just the way it did last year. John Gruden as well, I'm also very high on. I think John Gruden as a schemer, I'm high on. I think offensively, he did a lot last year that I loved. He helped out mediocre to below average talent outside of really Josh Jacobs to do well, and Darren Waller, I guess. He put Darren Waller in really good opportunities to get the ball, and he funneled the football to Darren Waller, which was nice to see. He also is going to do that with Henry Ruggs. That's something that people are not anticipating enough. Henry Ruggs is going to get the ball a lot because Gruden will make sure he gets the ball. I wish this team had Antonio Brown last year because I think it would have been a really, like a top 10 offense, a top, like really explosive offense. And it sucks that they were never able to see AB on the field as a Raider. But I know that's a difficult sore subject. So let's look at the defense. Defensively, I had to make a recent switch because I believe Randall got released and I thought he was going to play free safety for them. But I think what's going to happen now is that Abram moves to free safety and he uses his range as a free safety. I'm high on him, so without even seeing him really play, I have him at 22. He was a first-round pick 2 years ago, and I really like what I saw on Hard Knocks. I think he's going to be a great leader defensively for them, and I liked him in college a lot, so Heath is a solid, strong safety. I would have liked to have seen him as more of a rotation guy because he's a really good in-box guy, and that's why I have him at 24. If they keep him in a box role, I think he can be successful, but if you're asking him to be a deep safety, he's not good at that. Hurst and Collins, I like a lot. Hurst was really productive as an interior pass rusher last year, did not get enough credit for that. And that's why I have them at 22. But both are top 30. I think they're both extremely underrated. They're both good pass rushers, and that's what I like to see. And that's why I like what the Raiders have done defensively. They've added a lot to help their pass defense, which I think is very important. I'm not very high on Clelin Ferrell or Furl, whatever people are pronouncing his name to be nowadays. And Max Crosby, I still think has something to prove, but he did have a very impressive rookie season. Trayvon Mullen, I think, is, again, another guy on this defense that's better than people give him credit for. Nick Kwiatkowski is a borderline number 1 linebacker after the way he played for the Bears last year, and I think he was a nice secondary addition to bringing in Corey Littleton, who's a top 10 linebacker in the league. Doesn't have a weakness. He's one of the best tacklers. He's one of the best cover guys. Damon Arnett, looking like a great draft pick. Really looking like a great draft pick. Having a great training camp by all reports. Has more speed than I gave him credit for coming out. And LaMarcus Joyner, this is the problem I have with the Raiders. I wish they played Joyner at free safety. Maybe they will. Maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe they play a lot of 3 safety looks and Joyner plays more of a traditional safety. Maybe they play Abram closer to the line. Maybe. I'm not sure. But Joyner played nickel early in his career with the Rams and played nickel last year for the Raiders. But Abram was not on the field for them last year. So I don't really know how it's going to look. That's kind of up to their staff and their coaching. But they could maybe put, I think his name's Robertson, I think, on the field. Their rookie. Maybe they like him because they did release Amukamara. So that makes me wonder if they like some of their young players to play a big role this year that they drafted because they had a lot of draft picks this year, especially in the secondary. So Joyner, I don't love as a nickel player. That's why I have him at 22 at nickel. I think he's a better safety. I think he's a top 20 safety, but I don't think he's a good nickel. So I think it would make their defense a lot better at safety if they played Joyner at safety again, but that's just my opinion. So I think the ultimate X factor for the Raiders is their defense, what we just looked at there. If they can get a better pass rush this year, if Farrell can step up, Crosby can play the way he did last year, maybe get a little bit better. If that interior can improve with the addition of Collins, and Littleton helps them in the middle of their defense, and maybe Arnett's a promising young rookie, and they see, Mullen take another step forward. I think their defense can really be the shockingly good unit this year. They have that kind of potential because they have all these young guys coming together. And if that's the case, this team can be in the playoffs. That's what I believe. But I don't see them making the playoffs this year based on what is without projecting them to all have great seasons. Projecting everything to go well, they make the playoffs. Projecting somewhere in the middle, my projection for the Raiders is that they go 7-9. Now, I want to have the Raiders go better than 7-9. But this is the reason I have the Raiders at 7-9. Okay? Let's take a look at their schedule. It is absolutely brutal. Okay? I brought up the Texans schedule as being brutal. Check out the Raiders' start to the season. After playing the Carolina Panthers in week 1, which will be a victory, they play the Saints, New England in New England, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Bucks, the Browns. Then they play 3 division games in a row. The Chargers, the Broncos, the Chiefs. Then they play in Atlanta. Then they play the Jets, which is a win. Then they play the Colts. Then they play, again, Chargers, Broncos again, and Dolphins. So, I mean, this schedule, if they had an easier schedule, I would give them 8 to 10 wins. But because this schedule, they play legitimately. Like, I'm just going to count for you. Saints are a playoff team, in my opinion. Bills are a playoff team, in my opinion. Patriots are a playoff team, in my opinion. Chiefs are a playoff team. Bucks are a playoff team. Browns are a playoff team. Broncos are a borderline playoff team. Colts are a playoff team. That's 8 teams. That is half of their schedule, guys, that they play versus playoff caliber teams. That's nuts. So that's why I have them at 7-9. I think they'll win most of the games they should win. They might upset 1 or 2 teams. That's the way I see it. I want the Raiders to be better than 7-9, which I think they were last year. But given this schedule and given how difficult the division is, that's why I have them at 7-9. So I hope you can understand that, Raiders fans. All right. So I want to hear your Raider predictions. And then we're going to end with the team that I feel most people are intrigued by, which is the Denver Broncos. So the Denver Broncos are going to finish this up. Name says, I don't think the Raiders will make the playoffs. Party says Denver is overhyped. We'll get to them in a second. Predictions, guys. Predictions. But before we get to the Broncos, Gronk, spike that like button if you haven't already. And subscribe to The Bottom Line View if you are new to the channel. NFL coverage all year long. All right. Joseph says, I have them at 6-10. I'm not high on Carr or that secondary except Abram. They go at best 10-6 and at worst 4-12. Denver had an amazing defense. They're going to sneak into playoffs. I have them going 9-7. We're not there yet, man. Calm down. GSP, I have Las Vegas going probably 8-8, but as high as 10-6 possibly. They have a tough schedule to get through, but I think they can be a very good borderline playoff team. Party says the Broncos are the most overrated team in the NFL. Opium says the Raiders are hard to predict. I agree with that. Dave says Raiders are 9-7. Party says the Broncos are 7-9, which he keeps talking about the Broncos. Singh says Raiders 6-10. Price says I have the Raiders at 7-9 with a floor at 6-10. So you have them closer to their floor than their ceiling. I do as well. Sports says Raiders 4-12 because their defense is bad. Their schedule is hard. Nick says 7-9 or 8-8. Raiders are a 10-6 team. Party, if they go 10-6, I'll give you the credit where credit deserves. I see it. I see what you see, Party. But given the schedule, I just can't predict it. What else? Raiders aren't making the playoffs, says Kevin Durkant. Dakota says, I think the 7-9 record for the Raiders is reasonable. Party says the Raiders are a good team. Cody says, who did Denver beat in week 17? I don't remember. Did they beat the Raiders? I don't remember, to be honest. I don't think I was paying attention to the Broncos last week 17. Ultra says Raiders lose to Kansas City 2 times, the Chargers once, the Broncos once, the Saints, the Bucks, the Browns, and Atlanta. Ooh, so they beat New England. That's interesting. That will be a big game for them, New England. So you have them losing 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games. Raiders 10-6 for Arto. Cody says Drew Lock, baby. All right. Nicholas says this team is so hard to predict. I have no clue. They could be a good playoff team or could be really bad. Yeah, I agree. All right. So let's finish up with the Denver Broncos. Some people call them the Broncos, which I used to call them, but now I'm just going to call them the Denver Broncos. Okay, Bronco fans? Let's get to the Broncos. The Broncos are a team that I've been very interested in this offseason, the whole offseason, to see how they've, the players they've been bringing in. I thought they showed promise last year. I thought they outperformed expectation last year. So let's break them down. All right. So the Denver Broncos, I have finishing second in the AFC West. I have their offense at 24, which is probably their floor, if I'm being honest. I think their ceiling is like top 10. Defense, number 3. You could argue that it's maybe the best. I could see their defense being the best in the NFL this year, and we'll get to the reasons why. But their offense definitely could struggle. And according to camp reports, and this is always tough to call because this is just like my Patriots, right? So the camp reports have been that the Broncos offense has been struggling in camp. Drew Lock and the offense has been inconsistent versus the Broncos, but that's because their defense is so good. Like, I don't know if that's because their defense is so good or their offense sucks. Like, I don't know what it is, right? Just like New England. Like, New England struggles in camp versus their defense because their defense is really good. Like, that's just the way it is in practice. Like, if you ever played on a team, no matter the sport, some teams are just better in certain areas. So, let's go with their Broncos offense. So, the Broncos offense. Okay, guys, I think the graphic's all good. I don't think I messed this one up. Courtland Sutton, as you can see, I moved up massively in my rankings. I don't think I gave Courtland Sutton enough credit for like how good he was in jump ball situations. And I do think he has a lot of potential. So he is a top 20 receiver. And Noah Fant, I think, is going to become a top 10 tight end at some point. I'm not sure if it will be this year or next year, but it's going to be within the next 2 years where Noah Fant is a top 10 tight end. They signed DeMar Dotson to replace Jawan James, who got injured once again. Graham Glasgow was a really nice signing, especially if they want to be a run-heavy team, which I think they are. Cushenberry is a rookie, so I can't rank him any higher than the worst center in the league. I've never seen him play. I don't know if he's actually going to start or not. Broncos fans can let me know there, but my assumption is he is. Dalton Reisner is top 20 guard to me. He's a really solid all-around player. I don't think he's special or anything like that, but he's solid. And Garrett Bowles is decent as well. He's had his ups, he's had his downs, but he's playing better recently as of late. I think Jerry Jeudy will take a lot of their snaps in the slot because that's where he's been at his best in college. I think he's going to have a fantastic rookie year, especially if Hamler misses any time. But yeah, I think Jeudy is better off in the slot than Hamler personally, so that's why I put him there. Hamler has more speed to threaten defenses, while Jeudy is a better route runner. And Jeudy did play a lot in the slot in college. And Drew Lock, I have 26th. I think he'll be probably... I want to hope that he's a top 20 quarterback this year, but I can't necessarily say he will be. Melvin Gordon is honestly underrated. I think he doesn't get enough credit for how well-rounded he is. You can't say that you can't say there's 20 running backs or even 16 running backs that are more well-rounded than Melvin Gordon. You honestly can't. You honestly can't say that. Melvin Gordon might not be the best receiver or the best runner at the running back position, but he is really good at both. And I think he's a better receiver than Phillip Lindsay. Lindsay might be a slightly better runner, which is kind of a myth that Lindsay is a good receiver. He's not. He's a really good runner, though. And they're a great combination. I love Phillip Lindsay. I love the way he runs. I think he's super explosive. But Melvin Gordon is just a better all-around player. He's just a better all-around player to me. And they've been looking for his size. And I still think he has explosion left in his game. So that's the offense. I think they have a lot of potential, but they also have a lot of questions. Their questions being right tackle, center, their receiving core, and Drew Lock, most importantly. And defensively, this is where I get really excited about this team. Defensively, I have now replaced Jewell with Davis, who Davis got released. Alexander Johnson is a top 20 linebacker. He played like a borderline top 10 guy last year. I still think he needs to prove this year whether or not that was, a one-hit wonder season or if he's really legit. And more often than not, Vic Fangio gets the best out of his linebackers. So I trust him when he releases, when he releases these guys, that he has guys to replace it, because Fangio loves his linebackers and he really knows how to scout them well. Bradley Chubb, I think, will have a great season this year, and I think he'll be top 20, but I can't put him in there right now because he didn't play all of last year. Von Miller is still elite. Stop hating on Von Miller. He's honestly one of the best edge rushers of all time, and he's going to be really good. I think he's going to be better. He's going to be better than last year because I think having Chubb there and having Casey there is only going to help Miller. And just look at that defensive line. I mean, Chubb, Casey, Harris, Miller, get out of here, bro. That might be the best defensive line in the NFL. It's in the conversation. Casey is still a stud. He might not put up the sack numbers, but he's one of the best all-around interior linemen in the league. Callahan is a middle-of-the-road nickel cornerback. He's going to be an upgrade for them. They didn't have him all of last season. AJ Bouye, I have my questions about. I could be totally wrong. He could be top 20 this year. He could be top 10. But last year and the year before that, he did not play very well in Jacksonville. I have a question about their other outside cornerback. How good is that position going to be, whoever it is? Justin Simmons is the best free safety in the league, in my opinion. He is so good. He does not have a flaw, whether it is tackling, man-to-man, zone, athletic profile. All of it is out of the frigging roof, bro. It's amazing. Kareem Jackson is so underrated. He has been for so long. So long. I mean, he was a great nickel corner for the Texans back in the day. He's a great tackler. He's very smart. He makes plays, forces fumbles, interceptions, all of it. That defense could be the best in the league. If I knew that their corner position was better, and if I knew it could play at its peak, I'd rank it number 1. But it's in the top 5 for sure for me. So, at the end of the day, where do I have... Oh, before I do that, before I give you the prediction, I do need to bring up 2 more things. And I'm talking about 2 coaches, okay? So, their offensive line coach and their offensive coordinator, they made key additions to those 2 areas. I believe Munchak was added last year, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe this offseason. I don't remember. It's kind of like mixed into one. But adding Shermer as the offensive coordinator is huge. I think he is a really good offensive coordinator. I think he is like a borderline top 12, at least top half offensive mind. He's not a good head coach, but he is a good coordinator. And I think he's going to get the best out of Drew Lock, just like he did with Daniel Jones in New York. And I think that's a good thing for Drew Lock. And I wasn't a fan of their offense last year. I think it's going to be much better this year, especially, the scheme-wise. I'm talking scheme-wise. Their talent's obviously better, but the scheme will be better too. So, yeah, and I think their offensive line is really well coached. I think their defense is really well coached. So their coaching staff and their defensive talent is why I want them to be in the playoffs this year. But they have more questions to me. And I think they need to go through that growing pain season before they make the playoffs. So that is why I have them, unfortunately, Broncos fans, as my 8th seed in the AFC. I had them as my 7th seed, which would have been a playoff spot, until New England signed Cam Newton. And my biased Patriot fan self has New England now in the playoffs. And now I've moved the Broncos one game down. And unfortunately, they also play New England. So that game may actually determine whether they make it or not. But I have them finishing 2nd in the AFC West, 8th in the AFC, right behind Cleveland and New England. And I think they're going to be right on par with the Titans, the Texans for that, in contention for a playoff spot. Their ceiling is 12-4. Their ceiling is 12-4 because I think if Drew Lock has that year 2 jump that we've seen so many times, their defense is as good as I think it can be, and those receivers come through, which I think the receivers would come through if Lock comes through, then they're a contender. Like, this team could be as good as a contender this year. They could be as bad as a team that's not even close to the playoffs. Like, they have a wide range of outcomes, which I've realized I've said a lot about the AFC West. This entire division has a wide range of outcomes because they have a lot of questions. And the Broncos are no different. So that's my breakdown of the Broncos and the AFC West. Guys, give your predictions for the AFC West and for the Broncos, and then I'm going to peace out and eat my birthday dinner. Let's go. Tomorrow, NFC East and NFC North, I'm hoping to do tomorrow, probably a little bit later than I did today. Keto says Denver beats New England, but still gets the 8th seed. What's up, Keto? I don't think I've seen you in the live chat. What's going on, man? And guys, if you did enjoy this breakdown of this division, of this AFC West, make sure you do Gronk Spike the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Joseph says I have them at 9-7 and at 7 seed because I think they'll beat the Patriots, who I also have at 9-7. Sorry, Mitch, but happy birthday. All right, thanks. Price says happy birthday. Thanks. Cody says, good work, man. You're very on point. Thank you, Cody. Appreciate that. Appreciate to hear that from the fans of the teams because that means the most. Dakota says Pat Shurmur was high on Drew Lock, which is part of the reason why he came here. Okay, cool. This season is heavily reliant on Drew Lock. Yes, I agree. If he performs great, see, this is part of the problem with Drew Lock. He didn't have the full second offseason that a lot of quarterbacks have. So I think the chances he breaks out like those other guys is lower because of that. If he performs, the Broncos make the playoffs. No cap, 11-5, says Dakota. Cody says happy birthday too. Thank you. Opium says 10-6. Nice. That was my original prediction before Superman. Singh says I have Raiders, Broncos, and Chargers going 6-10. GSP says I see them being 10-6 and being in contention for the playoffs. Their fate depends on Cleveland and Pittsburgh because if Big Ben plays well and the Browns unlock their potential. Yes, Browns are another team that could just nudge the Broncos out of the playoffs. I agree with that. Pittsburgh, I'm a little higher on than both teams just because I think they're a little safer, but that's just me. Robert says their offensive line is terrible. Even if they do have a good offense, I don't think their offensive line is terrible. I think it's mediocre. Just popped in for a little bit. Happy birthday, Mitch, says Keto. Thank you. I have the Broncos going 9-7, says Sports with AJ. GSP says happy birthday, Mitch. Enjoy yourself. Thank you. Price says, I think Denver going 10-6 with a ceiling of 12-4 and a floor of 8-8. Dave says happy birthday, Mitch. Thank you, Dave. Opium says happy birthday. Thank you. Runa says, huge Bronco fan. Up to Drew Lock. Team is stacked. I'm thinking 11-5 or 10-6. Definitely have the talent to make the playoffs. Dakota says, happy birthday. Sure. Happy birth. Thank you. Robert says 12-4. I think your ceiling is what? I don't know what you're saying. All right. Anyways, I think that's it, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching these previews today of the AFC South and the AFC West. If you enjoyed, again, Gronk spike the like button and subscribe to the channel. It's Mitch of the Bottom Line View, and we'll see you tomorrow for the start of the NFC East, and the NFC North. GSP has a quick question before I go. Get it in, bro. Get it in before we leave. Sports says 9-7 for the Broncos. Runa says happy birthday. Thank you. Thank you for the birthday wishes, guys. Appreciate it. Also, guys, if you aren't already in the Discord, get in that Discord, the BLV community. It's a great community. We talk football every day. We have hot takes, and we have a lot of fun little debates. Name says 9-7 is most likely. 8-8 is probably. 10-6 is my ceiling, says Name. I'm trying to wait for this GSP question. Who do you think is better? What? Mr. Lang. Mr. Lang! I haven't seen... I think you've been in the chat a long time ago. I haven't seen you in a while, I think. But thank you for the happy birthday. Robert says, offensive line is horrible. Anyways, I disagree. Broncos will be a good team. Broncos will be a fun team. Broncos will be an exciting team. And so will this AFC West. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. It's Mitch of the Bottom Line View. Peace.